or thereabout, how will they communicate? Would you use a translator or you work with them? Are you having any program, in other words, in line of transformation to take the language learning and the cross-cultural learning for peace building and for agricultural, economic benefits? That I can talk to you, you can talk to me, we can transact business based on that we understand the language. Are you doing that, or you have any plan in that line of transformation?
It's interesting because the conversation today is always about young people and youth,
yes,
and how the future belongs to them.
Yes.
So, but therein is also an opportunity, because when you're young, you have a lot of time, you still have time. Yeah. And your brain is still very fresh. Yes, yes. So then I would encourage them, the young people, to start learning different languages, and also parents, I guess. Because at that age, children can be encouraged to learn different languages, because that will open multiple opportunities for them. Unfortunately, we're not able to be sponsors right now, but they could talk to the French embassy, or maybe the Ministry of Education. And I'm sure there are programs out there that can support them to become bilingual or trilingual or even more. Okay, on that note, how many languages do you speak, by the way? I speak 3 languages. 3 languages? Yes. Which one? Luganda, English, and French. Ah, okay. Yes. Well, I guess you're already in the process of making more money ahead of some of us who speak only 1 language or 2 languages and not very good. And I'm learning German. Wow. Divine, we've come to the end of the show. We want to just close up this program, the CEO Bench today, by just telling us a little bit more about how do you measure impact of the work that you've been doing. In the last 5 years you've been working. How are you able to measure the impact, and what legacy would you want to leave behind? The day you said, I'm done, what would be the legacy of Divine Nabawisi? Okay. So, you do your best. You do your best and hope that you're going to have impact in your work. So our impact is measured in avoided deforestation, meaning that for every one seedling we plant, we are saving, for example, an acre of bamboo could potentially save 2 acres of hardwood trees every year. Then a ton of briquettes of bamboo is potentially saving X number of charcoal from being produced. So in terms of avoided deforestation, in terms of avoided emissions, but also in terms of opportunities that we give to women, we hope that our impact will be that women have more time for productive work instead of having to walk kilometers to collect firewood, for example, or the dangers they face while they're going to collect firewood. We hope that that would be the impact. Improved health, instead of cooking from the 3-stone fire that traditionally we in Africa are used to cooking on, that now they can have improved means of cooking. That would be an impact. The youth we are training, the opportunities, the income generation opportunities that we are creating, and also inspiring other young people and other women that you can come up with an idea that you believe in, and if you give it your all and give it time, eventually you will make a difference. Wow. Well, thank you very much, Divine, for coming to the program today. We want to say thank you for accepting our invitation to come and sharing with the ideas. We're definitely going to bring you back to the program, and looking forward to seeing the impact of bamboo in our society in the next couple of years to come. And what would be your one last parting shot to that one human being anywhere in the world, stuck in their job, don't know how to move from one point to the next, and want to move? And what will be that one word you want to leave them with, or 3 things that you want to leave them with, that when they do, they will begin to see different things or experience a different lifestyle going forward in their life? If you look into this camera. Okay, I think 2 things. One is it gets better. It always gets better, so never give up. Like Winston Churchill said, never, 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 ever give up. And then the second one, which really helps a lot, which really helps me a lot, is remembering that there's enough for us all. So when other people succeed, be happy for them. And so don't fight for resources, don't be greedy, because in the end, there's enough for us all.
Wow. Thank you very much, Divine. And thank you very much, everybody, for coming to the program today. We're going to, sort of like spread love like we always do. We're taught by Pastor Joshua Martin Mugabe. Watoto says, whenever you do this, you have to spread love. No, you have to spread love. Yes, you have to spread love to everyone that is going. But thank you very much for coming, Divine. We've come to the end of the CEO Bench today. We want to say thank you very much, everybody. Divine will be coming back on the show on the Creative Industry Talk to talk about the creativity of how they're using bamboo to create more jobs and how that is being used in creating furniture, building houses, using it. She talked about that can be used for bed sheets and beds and stuff like that. We want to know how that process works. She talks about it being used in the value chain of, you grow bamboo, you use it for cooking, you use it for building the house, you use it for putting the shades, but then also you use it for cooking. How is that bamboo being turned around to briquette and to clean fuel to cook food? We want to understand that on the Creative Industry Talk. Until then, we say thank you very much for being part of the show. Eddie Okila, Divine Nabawesi, signing out.
Learned a lot from the YouTube on how to make cakes. I don't need to come to an expensive school in Kampala. You can use it technology for it. Just get people exposed towards something and they see the good thing about it and they take off. So we can see that with technology, with ICT, women can transform their lives right from the home. You walk to an ICT center that is near you. Yeah. Students, even at home, can walk to the center. If you have a wireless system, hotspots available, like in the market in Gulu, we established the hotspots, and the women during the COVID, you can use it to sell, find market prices. Farmers are using it to find prices of, of their products. Network, the possibilities. You open people to the world and take them away from their small world. Yeah. Open them up. People are doing businesses, electronically.
Wow.
So that's the beauty of Bosco Uganda. I see so much that
see what you're talking about. I can see through it. And I want you to share your questions if you are for Jennifer. But Jennifer, our time.
Engineered in the heart of the pearl, one face, four perspectives, embracing a hip urban and dynamic community, keeping dibs on the constantly evolving African scene, fanning the hottest talent in Uganda and beyond, inspiring beautiful minds across the world, literally changing the game on television. This is XXL TV Show Season 4. Go big or go home. Otherwise, be inspired.
I'm a believer of functionality over form.
Oh, yes.
What will make you function as opposed to what form must you possess? Like you've done all the theories, you've done all these, but I'm a believer of functionality. Yeah. Now, people will tell you, for academics is not about only just functionality. Yeah. So we must give you basis, approach, all the things that you need to know. Yeah. Granted, but still take 4 years.
Certainly not.
Thank you. So how do we, because you see, time is no longer luxury.
Yeah. And COVID has showed us that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we need to really search deeply and ask ourselves, what do we want?
What do we want to achieve with this?
And then how do we run the transformation? How do we change? And how do we manage change? I think for me, like I said, until it is painful, you can't.
I think the challenge with some of the art forms they're quite expensive and exhausting. When you talk about like video mapping, I mean, if you're a video mapping artist in Uganda, where would you get a job? Who's gonna give you a gig? You know, so you are in it for that's why I was saying the new Africa France is open. So for this I think, and also if you're a video artist here, you really. I mean, it will be really hard for you to get a gig in France or Europe because they are at a whole different level when it comes to mind, when it comes to skills, when it comes to software, because all these things work with software. Every time there's a new software, there's a new, it's like being on these apps that people use all the time. Everything, all the time there's something new. And how do you keep up with that? So some art forms would be really difficult for some of the Ugandan artists. And it doesn't mean that it's easy for the European or the Americans. It's also difficult for them, but what happens with them is that first of all, they have the knowledge, they have schools where they go to learn this, and it's recognized. It means that when they come out of those schools, they are respected because they learn that form of art. And then when they go out in the market and they don't have gigs, there is a system that helps them to survive. They are given some, capital or money to survive on, even if they don't have a gig. When they get a gig, they can declare that they got a gig, and then they don't have to claim money from the state. So
gig being business in
So if there was a system like that, and imagine Eddie or young people who are and every year there's also these opportunities, like every year there's a lights festival, there is a video mapping festival, there's a all these street theater festivals. So it means that someone is working, even though they know they are not going to get paid all the time, but they know at the end of the year there is something they look up to. And that gives them the motivation to create that kind of content. But if there is no opportunity, there is no platform for them to show their work, then it becomes difficult for them to be motivated.
Engineered in the heart of the pearl, one face, four perspectives, embracing a hip, urban and dynamic community, keeping dibs on the constantly evolving African scene, fanning the hottest talent in Uganda and beyond, inspiring beautiful minds across the world, literally changing the game on television. This is XXL TV Show Season 4. Go big or go home. Otherwise, be inspired.
To talk about my experiences and how God has been able to use me in the different exposures. And through the leadership, through change management and transformation, I've been able to do a couple of things in my life. Now, are you a kind of person who is tired of your status quo? Do you want your situation to change? Are you tired of what is going on in your life? You know, change is a fact of life. We've all been through experiences in the last couple of months that have taken us to a place where we need to do something about our lives. We need to change whatever is going on. So if you have not piled up investment for yourself, you need to do that. If you've not done businesses to hold your family in future, you need to do that. Are you thinking of full-time employment? You need to be thinking about your life after employment or your business in the next couple of years. So if you want us to chat, if you want us to talk about this, please get in touch with us at SEAL Uganda on number 0772443085, or check our website www.sealuganda.com, or on all the social media handles. You can hook me up or Facebook, that is Jean-Paul Olowo, on Instagram, Jean-Paul Olowo, and on Twitter and LinkedIn. Then we can chat a way forward with you. We can help you, we can coach you, we can walk with you this journey of financial freedom. Thank you.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes. This is the CEO Bench. My name is Edio Killer and it's a Friday. Welcome to the CEO Bench. Of course, this week we bring you a very interesting guest, the third female on the show, and we will be talking leadership, change management and transformation. And of course, in today's rapidly changing world, learning to of course lead and design our organization to read the turbulence of time that comes with leadership challenges and change management is key in us making proper decisions that will take our organization forward, but also to allow us, manage impact of what we're trying to do. So today on the show, this program brings you Francis Birungi Odom, who is an executive director of Ukobak. I'm yet to understand how to pronounce the entire word from her, but Francis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, I'm very well, thank you.
And welcome to the CEO Bench.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, in a nutshell, who is Francis?
So, who is Francis? So, Francis is Francis Birungi Odong, as you said. I am, what should I say? I work in Ukobak, like you said. Ukobak in full, it's a mouthful indeed. It's Uganda Community-Based Association for Women and Children's Welfare. I am married to one man. We have 4 children. I was born in Kenya, but I'm Ugandan. My parents were exiled in Kenya for a period of time. So we are a family of 7. And 6 of us were born in Kenya, and then we moved back to Uganda. So I have been partly raised in Kenya and partly raised in Uganda. So basically, that's who I am. I don't know if that's sufficient.
Yes. It's always difficult for people to say who they are and what they stand for.
Yes.
So Francis, welcome to the CEO Bench. We want to know more about you as an individual. How did you end up where you are in what you're doing today? since you said you were born in Kenya,
Yes.
because your parents were exiled in Kenya,
Yes.
why did you choose not to stay in Kenya than to return to Uganda and to end up to what you're doing today?
Yeah. Really, that was not my choice. That was my parents' choice. I'm sure them living in Kenya was not by choice. It was because of the circumstances at that time. And so when everything settled down, they chose to return to Uganda, and we were taken to schools in Uganda. Unfortunately, when I came into Uganda, when we came back as a family, I only spoke Swahili. I couldn't speak anything else. So getting into school, it was very difficult because, of course, in Uganda, we don't speak Swahili. It was very difficult to speak, to speak English, to speak the local languages in Uganda. So I had to go backwards. So many times in the classes, as I was progressing, I was usually the older one in the class because I had to go back, yes, a number of steps. But it was okay. Somehow I was fitting in. Did my primary school here in a school called Nsube. Then from there I went to Tororo Girls School for secondary, finished my secondary, went to Green Hill, did my HSC, then went to university where I did a first degree. And while doing actually when I was in my senior 6 vacation, I asked my mom that I wanted to do some voluntary work. I wanted to, to do something other than sitting at home. So she was, at that time, she was working with a non-government organization as well called Forward. And I was taken in as an intern. So I worked there. It really kind of gave me the first experience of working in a civil society organization. They were focusing on work, supporting women to participate in leadership positions and so forth. So it was very intriguing at that age, but it was not yet my time to really, work. I wasn't very sure, but I was trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. And for me, it was very empowering seeing what was happening in this organization. And when I went to university, I did social sciences, majoring in sociology. So I think my choice for the university for the course that I took was because of what I saw that was happening in this organization. So I did my sociology course, finished 3 years, and after school I told, again I had a conversation with my parents and told them, you know what, I feel like I want to do the work that I did when I was doing my voluntary work. So do you think you can help to talk to your peers, because they were doing that? My father was in politics, but my mother was doing civil society work. And at that point, I was taken in Yukobak. Yes. As an intern. Yes, so it was immediately after university that I joined Yukobak as an intern. And I started, doing simple work. I was really doing support work in the organization. But I was very eager to learn about what they were doing. It was very interesting, but also the kind of work that they were doing, working with women and children. I thought that was something that was very powerful. I moved to the field with the staff that were in Yukobak at that time, and did, I would do the support work of giving out paper or serving tea or serving, anything that I could be, asked to do. But in the process, I always sat in the classes for the women and the children, and I would look at how the staff were impacting on these lives. It was very interesting to see how people's lives were transforming, from nothing to something. So really, it built, it built my interest. But also I felt that I wanted to know more about how I can contribute in a more meaningful way in this sector. Wow. Yes, so I worked there as an intern for some time, and I didn't feel like I wanted to do anything else. To me, because I had arrived, if I should say.
So basically your mind was corrupted, and this is where I'm going to be.
Yes, I had arrived at that point, because really for me what was very important to me was transformation, was seeing lives of people changing from nothing to something. And the fact that in this environment was showing me that it is possible to contribute in one way or another to change an individual's life. So it exposed me. I came from a background, my parents, I wouldn't say it was a very poor family, so I had not got that exposure. So working in this environment really showed me the reality of the world. I came to see that actually majority of Ugandans were living in poverty, were vulnerable and needed support. So for me, it was fulfilling to work in this organization, and that is how I started my career in Yukovac.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if you're joining the CEO bench, that right there is getting you into what we call knowing somebody personally, and of course getting into their life. That is Frances is the executive director of Yukovac, and she's on the CEO bench. If you're joining us from anywhere in the world, we're live on Twitter, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, and House of Time /Facebook. Please tell your neighbor and tap your cousins, and this story is going to be a very interesting one. As well as on Twitter, wherever you are, tweet, show, share, retweet, and make sure everybody gets to know what is happening. Frances, I want to just take you straight to this. And in today's changing world, it's rapidly changing world, learning to lead and design our organization to read the turbulence of time creatively is critical to our ability to make positive impact. And this television program is about those that are at the top of doing that, or those that are rising up to the top of doing that. And the focus is on transformational change and the implications for the individuals who are in that space as leaders, or in their organizations, or in the culture of the organization, or in our society, depending on what structure that we're in. Your story that you have given in the intro of this interview is very important. But we want to know something more specifically, lining to your organization, which is civil society today. Give us a sneak peek of the life of a woman in that space.
Oh, that's a very good question. The life of a woman in this space is just the same as the life of a woman in any other space. It's not an easy space, especially when it comes to leadership, and when it comes to influencing decisions and also influencing processes in any other institution. So it is not an easy space for a woman. It is a space where a woman has to do something extra or do something more to be able to prove that they are able to do what they should be doing. So I would say that it's the same. It's very competitive. Many times we see that in many civil society organizations, still we find them to be male-headed, and we're having many women, many girls taking up leadership roles in civil society organizations, but it's not an easy task. It's where we have to really prove ourselves that we can lead these organizations to greater heights. And there's a lot that is involved in the civil society organizations. There's leadership in itself, there's management of processes, there's management of the human resource, there's fundraising, there's research. It's a lot that needs to be done, and many times there is a feeling that is too much for a woman because she has other traditional roles that she needs to do as at home. So many times as people are looking for leaders in civil society organizations, the priority is usually given to men because of our society that feels that men have the time, men have the capacity, men have the ability to lead, to take this organization to greater heights. And women, there will be a problem. They will have to go to maternity leave. They have issues. They are too emotional. They have not done the courses that are good enough for leaders. They don't have time to to go for extra learning, or to go for work outside Kampala because they have to tend to their children. So there's too much that society has tied around a woman. And it's true, we have these traditional roles that we have to do, but does not in any way mean that women cannot lead in these spaces. So it is really changing with time. As more women get into leadership positions, it's changing, and there is more appreciation that is coming towards women, because women have demonstrated, many women leaders in civil society organizations, like in any other institutions, have demonstrated that they are able to excel, to move these organizations to greater heights. So I think it's changing with time, but it's still very difficult for women to take on leadership positions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Francis, I like the journey, and I would want to ask you one more question just before we go into a break.
Yeah.
The leadership journey and the little information about the organization you currently lead. You said you ended up there.
Yes.
Starting into the process of
internship,
and then luckily your mother ended up taking you there, and now you are in that space.
Yeah.
We want to know more about this organization. What are the issues that you are working on as Yukuba at the moment? Having started there as a child.
Okay.
I would call you as a child because you are
yes,
young.
I was a child. I was a child. At that time,
yeah.
I was probably barely 20, maybe 19.
Yes.
A grown-up child, I should say. So the reason why I say my mother took me there, my mother was one of the founder members of this organization.
Yeah.
And she had been in politics before, and then later changed course and decided that she wanted to do something for women and children because that's her passion. So she started this organization. And I admired her for a long time. When I was little, when I was young, my mother used to do a lot of work around mobilizing women to participate in governance processes. And we tagged along as children at home when she went for trainings in communities. And I admired the way she spoke to people, the way she impacted lives. So when she started this civil society organization, this NGO, I asked her, can I come and work with you? Can I support you in this process? And she took me in, but didn't take me in. She was very strict because she gave me a lecture at the beginning and said, okay, I'm taking you in, but you're not any special. You're going to come in as an intern. You're going to make tea for the staff. You're going to to type. In those days, they would type. They would handwrite, and then they give you to type so that you can learn. And you're going to it will depend on you on whether you will get a job or not, because I don't hire. I have a board that hires and fires. Yeah. So I said, okay, I'll take it on. And many times people think that because this was an organization that was started by mother, that it was easy for me. Yeah. It was actually more difficult for me because I had to prove myself beyond. I had to prove to her. I also had to prove to the board that I can be, I can work here. I am not taking advantage of this. I can do my best. I can contribute to this process. So so I got into this organization, and one thing that I did is that I worked hard. I worked hard at that time with the roles that I was given. I did them to the best that I could do. If it was typing something or going to support staff in the field, I did my best. I did not at any one time feel like, oh, I am someone's daughter, I am special. My mother is she's the founder member here. Yes. No, I did not have that at all. I worked hard, I proved myself. And when there was an opening for program officer, I put in my application. And I competed with many other people, and I was taken on as a program officer in the organization. And still as a program officer, I worked hard. I delivered. Excellence is always something that I strive for. Yeah. So I worked hard, I delivered, I proved myself. I moved the organization to the level where I felt it should be at that level as a program officer. Yeah. And I have moved in this organization from one level to another. I started off as an intern. I became a project officer. I became a program officer, and now I am the CEO. So it has been growth within the organization that has not been handed to me, but I have worked hard for it. Yeah. I have had to prove myself, and and I think really what I can say around that is that many times when girls or people are given opportunities in the organization, we take things for granted. and don't put in a lot of effort to make sure that we prove ourselves and grow our careers within that organization, or you know, move the organization from one level to another. And for me, that's what I did differently, and that is how I've been able to reach where I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was not like come here, hand it over a silver plate, and receive it, go with it.
No, it's been really hard work. Yokoback is actually governed by a board. So even if we had we had other CEOs, they saw the work that I was doing in this organization. I was a young girl, but I was working hard. I was striving to learn, went back to school, did my master's degree. I got a master's degree in human rights, came back and tried as much as possible to apply what I had learned. And I think that demonstration of hard work and dedication has really been something that has moved me from one level to another, to a level where I am now a leader in this organization, where I started as an intern.
Wow.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, Francis, why did you choose your mother's path, not your father's path of being a politician? Why?
Well,
why not the politician in your father?
Yes, I know. I've had that question a number of times, and actually some people have always thought that probably I should have taken the political side. But for me, the passion that I have to, like I said in the beginning, the passion that I have to serve communities, and this is not a bad thing to do. My father did it well. Many politicians are doing it well, but it's not yet my time. Probably, I should say that. But what I'm doing right now is very satisfying. I am supporting women and girls because, as you know, our society looks down upon women and girls because it's a patriarchal society. So for me, I use my experience to inspire girls, to inspire women to be better, to improve in their homes, to improve in their places of work, and to contribute meaningfully to the development of our country. And I feel for me that is also politics in itself. If we can support women to be able to participate in leadership positions in politics, that is politics itself.
Wow, you've heard it from Francis right there. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, the CEO bench will continue the discussion with Francis. And of course, we'll be asking Francis more on the leadership, change management, and transformation, which is what the show really stands for. Stay right there. We'll be right back after the break.
For me, leadership is a privilege of moving people towards a destiny. And for me, it would be towards God's agenda. That's the best, moving people to God's agenda. God has an agenda for everybody. And I know some people will say, oh, it's too much of God, but God has a plan for this world. And so whether you're in business, you're a medical personnel, if somebody came to you, a good medical leader says, I want you not only to be healed, but to be healthy. That's the kind of mindset that I see, and it's about self. So if you ask me, am I a leader? By the grace of God, I am a leader, and I am growing as a leader. And I thank God for that privilege of being a leader. And who is a leader to me? It's very simple. Someone that has a vision, but is also someone that is there serving people. For me, that's a leader. Vision is where you want to take things. Serving is the recognition that if the things do not matter to people, drop them.
Wow.
Drop them. Because at the end of the day, whatever we do must make a difference in people's lives. Anybody who has had huge impact in history, in leadership, the impact is not measured by just the things they did, but what those things did for people's lives. Did they make a difference? So it's useless for you to make so much money and the money does not add value to people's lives.
Wow.
So for me, yes, you have to have a vision, and at the end of the day, you are serving people. again, it doesn't change. Leadership is leadership, whether it is at what we would call a lower level or a top level. Leadership is leadership. It's about influence. It's that influence that comes from you have a vision and you are serving people. So what changes is the level of responsibility, but the other one that people don't like is the level of accountability. You see, Jesus said, to whom much is given, much will be required. So the only differences there is the level of responsibility. When you're at the national level, you are now responsible for an entire nation. When you are a CEO, now you're no longer just looking at the department, you are looking at the entire entity. The responsibility has changed, the accountability even goes higher. Hi, this is Julius Watlonyo, pastor at Watero Church. Thank you so much for tuning into House of Talent Television. It's a great, innovative way of doing TV, and particularly for being a part of the CEO bench, talking about leadership. You know what, friends? Leadership can be tough. Leadership can be lonely, and the dynamics of leadership keep changing. I want to encourage you, watch the CEO bench so that you can get to hear real practical tips on leadership from people who are actually practicing leadership. Once again, thank you for being a part of the CEO bench right here on House of Talent Television.
Welcome back from that break. My name is Eddie Okila, and of course this is the CEO bench. Francis Birungi Odong is the executive director of Ukubak. I will not attempt to pronounce it or to mention it fully before I get completely lost and then I get sued for messing up with the name. But Francis, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And to all of you out there, please share this far and wide. Make sure that this story coming from a woman, if you're a woman, share it. We got a third female on the show this week, and she's giving us the story of how she's made it to the top of being the executive director of Ukubak. Francis, we went to a break when you were telling us the leadership development. Let me start by asking you a question on this second one of the show. What is your understanding of leadership?
Okay, my understanding of leadership is really a gift from God to guide others and to support others to be able to do what they do even better. For me, that is leadership for me. To use a gift that you have to be able to support others, to guide others, and to direct others in a way that can make them perform better or even contribute better. Yeah, for me, that's leadership for me.
Okay, so what is self-leadership to you?
Self-leadership is, to me, leadership where myself, as a leader, for example, I am able to guide myself, I could use the same words, to guide myself, to direct myself in a way that I can be exemplary to the others. In a way that I can be an example for others, or in a way that I can develop as a person in a way that others can be able to benefit from my growth. So that is self-leadership for me, having that focus on yourself to grow yourself into someone that can be an example to others, someone that can direct others, someone that can, you know, support others, or someone that can be able to guide, you know, others to a particular direction, you know, in order to achieve something that is for a common good.
Okay.
So for me, that is self-leadership.
Wow. That said, Francis, about 30 years ago, Ukobak was started.
13
years?
30.
30 years.
Yes, yes.
I have been reading
Okay.
about Hukubak, and about 30 years ago, it is said that Hukubak started.
Yeah.
But of course, we would argue that this could be the oldest NGO or organization in the country,
Yes.
in that regard, in
Yes.
its category.
Yes.
And we want to know, fairly a young person leading it now, called Francis Birungi Odong, as an executive director. How does it feel steering this kind of an organization with that kind of weight?
Yes, it actually feels great. It feels great, and also it's a challenge at the same time, because I feel that as a leader of an organization that is one of the oldest organizations in the country, I have a burden on me to ensure that this organization does not collapse in my hands, because that will be bad for our generation as leaders.
Yes.
So I feel that
Yeah.
it is something that is very exciting. It is empowering. It is something that is really empowering for me, especially as a woman, to be in the steering wheel for this organization. But at the same time, I feel that I have something to prove. I have something to prove in the way that I have to show that this young generation can lead. It can lead differently, and it can, you know, move this organization to greater heights.
Okay.
So that is how it feels for me being in this position.
Yeah.
But I know for sure that as a young leader of this organization, I am supposed to look at the good things that have happened by the older generation, that have been able to move this organization to where it is.
And build on it.
And build on that.
Yeah.
Yes, because if I don't look at the history of the organization and how the founder members and the other leaders that have been in the organization have been able to bring it to this level for 30 years. You know, Eddie, that civil society organizations are very fluid. Many times they fail to go beyond even 5 years.
Yeah.
So there is something about them that they had that I feel I need to tap into, so as to be able to move this organization forward, so that I can also hand it over to the younger people to move it over. So I feel that I need to do more. I need to do my research to find out what it is that they have done, but also what can I do with the environment that I'm in now, in my time. What is it that I can do for this organization to make sure that it is stronger than it was before, but it is also a healthy organization to be handed over to the next generation.
Wow.
Yes.
So feeling, Francis, is a thought. Feeling is something that goes in the brain of a human being that is processed. But there's what we call responding to a specific stimuli, which is action, signal sent.
Yeah.
Do you think you are doing it right now?
Yeah, good question. I think I am doing that. I am doing that because I've got a good note from the, you know, the founders of the organization, but also people that have been leading before. And I feel that I'm doing well in terms of action, in the sense that Ukobak has really grown from who it was to who it is now. Just to take you back, as an organization, we started with one program area, which was basically working with orphans and vulnerable children and supporting them in different ways. But from, you know, probably 1 or 2 years back, the organization has taken on other program areas. We're now operating with 4 program areas: in sexual and reproductive health and gender-based violence, issues to do with climate change, and women's land and property rights. So for me, the fact that we are able to do more than what the organization, you know, originally thought it could do is amazing. But also it shows that we are able to respond to the needs of the time. And I feel that a leader, a good leader, is one that is able to transform the organization to be responsive to the needs of the current times. And that is what I and my team are doing, to ensure that we are responding, we are relevant to the current situation. By that time, by the time UCOBAC was formed, it was orphans and vulnerable children. Today, it is beyond that. It's climate change issues, it's women's land rights issues, it's issues to do with sexual and reproductive health issues, gender-based violence. So how do you make sure that the organization is able to be responsive to the current needs, but also to be relevant in the current times? And I think a leader, if I was a leader that came in at this time and I still had one program area of orphans and vulnerable children, that's where everyone would have question marks and say, okay, something is not right. So I think that is action in itself, that the organization is having more action areas. I am able to create this change in the organization without really disrupting the mandate of the organization, but also supporting my team to be able to, to appreciate that this is the direction that we need to move into right now, and also for them to be able to contribute, to support them, my team, to be able to contribute in these different areas by building their capacity, by giving them spaces to be able to learn and grow, so that they can then be able to contribute in these different areas. So for me, I think action is there.
All right. So if you are a viewer out there, and of course looking into the CEO bench, when I say looking into, it means you are hearing what Francis is saying and what Eddie is saying and thinking. That's what we call looking into it. But watching on television is what you are doing right now. So we want you to watch and also think. And Francis, this program combines intellectual rigor with personal challenge, collaborations with creative expression. Right now, we want to know from you. UCOBAC recently changed its leadership from the board level.
Yes.
And also, just like any other organization or any other sector, human resource turnaround or turnover in NGO world is the common currency, as my friend Yuanto Chom keeps saying. And how are you managing the change in this organization? We are now on the change management process of the CEO bench. Okay.
So change is good. I should start from that point. Change is good, but at the same time, change is very hard. And many times we find that there's a lot of resistance to change. But I think the best way to manage change is to accept that it's a good thing. It is hard, it is difficult, it is challenging, but it is a good thing. And as a leader, once you have that change in mindset, that change is good and you're open to change, then it helps. So as an organization and as a leader in this organization, I try to make sure that I am open to change. And this is change in different ways. Change in leadership, change in staffing, change in processes, because change is good, but also change is an indication of growth for the organization. So how we manage change is that first and foremost, we try as much as possible to prepare the organization for change. So you have mentioned that we have had a new board that has come in. This is not something that happened out of the blue. There has been preparation for this change. The board members themselves have been prepared. We're prepared that this is going to happen, and they were supported to understand why it is important for this to happen. And these are board members that had been board members for 10 years. And of course, the way they do things is very different from the way things are being done today. And of course, there was some kind of resistance, some kind of not understanding
because
really
in
why
Uganda, change in Africa, change is a problem. Change is not good for us. We don't know how to embrace it yet.
It is, but we appreciate that it's very difficult to accept change, but it is a good thing. And the board members, the older board members, were supported to understand why it is important to have this change. And they have handed over very happily to a new board. And the new board also has come in, but we have prepared them through the orientation process to be open to change, because as changing.
So you're preparing them before. You step in there with a plan, knowing that tomorrow you will be asked to
exactly, exactly. So we do governance for change, and not only in terms of the leaders themselves. the staffing.
Yes,
there is
yes.
a lot of change that happens
Yes.
because of the changes that are happening in our environment. It's not a static environment.
Yes.
So that is how change is happening. The organization, because I feel like I have contributed something to the growth of this staff, and this staff is building a career, is moving on, and is creating space for newer generation or younger people to come in. So I usually celebrate that. I support them to transit and then bring in new people to the organization, support them to, to be able to also make their own contribution in that space. So there's change that happens in the organization in terms of staff, in terms of programs, but as a leader, we try as much as possible to be open to it, to be able to support the systems, but also the personnel to be open to it, but also to appreciate it, despite the fact that it is hard. Okay. So that is our approach that we take.
Okay. And to our viewers,
that is our approach that we take.
Okay. And to our viewers, this is change management process in the CEO bench, and of course, when we say the CEO bench has that, we put leaders, CEOs on the CEO bench to task to explain some of the things. And the CEO bench brings out people who are in position of leadership and are actually practicing leadership by doing what they are supposed to do. And today on the show we have Francis, or Frances, depending on where you come from. Of course, the executive director of Huckelbach, who is telling us more about how she's actually managing change. Now, viewers engage with integrative mind maps of organizational and leadership development on this program. And that is the focus for us here, as well as instantly applicable practices for becoming more effective as a leader, but as well as becoming dynamic as an individual, as well as collective. Francis, on that note, the NGO sector in Uganda is well known for many things, good and bad. In some circles, we believe that they do good things, but quite a number of times we try to measure the impact of what they are doing and we don't see. How is it that, or rather, how are you doing it at Huckelbach? 30 years down the road, can you measure your impact? And we see it. And we're looking at measuring impact by measurable metrics. We're talking about, looking at the quantifiable, justifiable, measurable metrics of an organization. And so we want to put you on task as a CEO who has come in, or as an executive director who is there. How are you managing this? Can we see, can you take us through some of this that we can see today? Of course, reading from out there, I see that Huckelbach is known. You can't even mention the full names and it's known by that full name. It's known by the short name of
Huckelbach,
it. So how are you doing it?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. And I think monitoring change and impact is very critical for any organization, because many times we do a lot as civil society organizations, but if we don't track what we are doing, we end up doing nothing. And that's why you say that sometimes organizations are either doing something good or sometimes doing something bad. In many cases, they are doing good, but are not able to demonstrate, or they're not able to track that, they are doing good in these areas. And I think that's a gap that many civil society organizations have. I think the issue of monitoring impact and being able to demonstrate impact really comes from the organization being very clear from the onset on what its objectives are. That is the starting point. You need to be clear about what it is that you want to see as change. And what is change to you as an organization? What is it that you would celebrate as change, for example? So I think once you're very clear on that, you have a very clear vision, you have a very clear mission, very clear and smart objectives for the organization, it becomes easier for you to be able to monitor change. And that is one thing that I don't know if many organizations are doing, but the ones that I've interacted with are investing a lot to making sure that they have smart objectives. Beyond smart objectives, an organization.
We need accountability.
Yes,
We need
I know.
accountability, yes.
Beyond that, I think as an organization, we need to have systems.
Yeah.
Systems are very important. If you don't have systems and you're doing everything the way you want, then you will not be able to know if you're making a contribution or not in society. So systems are very important in the organization, but one of the major systems in terms of measuring impact is this, the issue of monitoring and evaluation systems. So there has to be a policy for the organization that responds or that shows that this organization is able to meet its objectives, but is also able to meet the objectives of the country and the world at large. So you have to see that, you know, that link, because we don't work in isolation as civil society organization. We complement efforts of government. So we have to make sure that our objectives that we do are in line or contribute or complement on what you know, the national development plans are, for example. But also we need to look at the sustainable development goals. What are the goals that we, you know, we would look at to say that there is development in the world, you know? So it's very clear to have a policy in place, a monitoring and evaluation policy that will show you that your interventions or your programs are first and foremost responding to your organizational objectives, but are also responding to the national priorities and are also contributing to the sustainable development goals. So a policy is very clear. It will show you what systems, you know, what you need to have in place. For example, you need to have monitoring tools for each program. You need to have personnel in the monitoring and evaluation to be able to collect data that you can then analyze and see whether you're contributing to this. You have to have a framework that really shows the, you know, the different programs that you're doing, the interventions that are under each program area, and the, you know, how you're going to collect data that will inform you that you're making change or not. So that is a very valid question, very good, and I think as leaders, it is something that we need to really focus on, so that then we don't waste resources. The resources are directed towards our goals and vision.
Francis, what are your take on these issues, and how are you as an ED basically dealing with some of these issues in your organization? The issues that I'm talking about are issues of transformation and change, learning the organization and how they do things, and of course the level of leadership development in that organization. I know you've mentioned some of them. We're talking about the practical practices for transformational leadership change. You've talked about many changes. You've mentioned the issue of accountability. We have seen leaders being arrested in some of these organizations because they're not doing it well. We've followed your story very well, and on the CEO bench, somebody has to nominate you, and we often have to have 3 nominations for you to come on the bench. You surpassed the 3 nominations, and you are on the bench today. What is that one thing that when you look back you think was worth somebody nominating you to come here?
Okay, I think,
given the levels I'm talking about, transformational, transformation and change, leadership and organization, levels of leadership development, practices for transformational leadership.
I would say that my nomination to be here could be mainly because of my style of leadership. The fact is that many of the people that we work with spend most of the time of their day in these organizations doing the best that they can do. So we need to show them as leaders that we value the time, we value their contribution,